5 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call to order the work session of the City of East Grand Forks for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Would the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Merkelstedt?
Here.
Council President Brian Larson?
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riefel?
Here.
Council Members Tammy Schumacher?
Here.
Ben Konstantinsky?
Here.
Dale Helms?
Here.
Donald Casey? Karen Peterson?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Let's go ahead and dive into item number 1, information on the Capital Improvement Plan Fund. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Council President and Council. The request was to kind of explain what the Central Equipment Fund, Fund 703 is, what it's used for. It's actually our financing fund for large projects, mainly equipment. It's actually equipment. And so what I wanted to do was going to actually show you all the little report that we do every year. And page 79, this is right out of that book. It talks about the internal service funds. Actually in here it talks about the other funds in there too. If you ever want a copy, there's extras. I can also email it to you. But it's an internal service fund. We have 2 of them. One is the Central Equipment Fund, which is Fund 703. The other fund is a benefit accrual fund, which is for our accumulated sick leave accumulations, so that when we have severance or retirement, we have funding for that. Since we have to carry it as a liability in our books, we have money in that fund to cover those costs, so it's not within our general fund yearly expenses. So I also wanted, what I'm going to present is 5 different sheets. One of them is the spreadsheet on Capital Finance Fund for the activity from 2020 to the future year 2029. And then we have a Planet software, it's called. We use it for our equipment and the funding sources of that. So I'm going to show you a page of that. And then we have general fund expenditures for fire and public works. It's actually out of our budget document, so you're familiar with it. It shows how we fund into that central equipment fund, how we budget for that every year. And then the last sheet is actually the spreadsheet of all the different equipment that we have used from the central equipment fund and how we paid the payments back. Okay, so I wanted to go back to 2020 just so you had some information and see what it's used for. There's a little history. So in 2020, there was a loader plow bought for the Greenway that we bought out of this fund. We had a payloader out of Public Works. And then if you see, we have general fund repayments. So what it is that the payloader of Public Works budgets the payment back. We do it over 9 years because most of the property equipment is on a 10-year life, according to GASB and FASB. So we pay it back in 9 years. So, sometimes equipment has to actually be replaced in 10 years because of wear and tear. So that's why we do it in 9 years. And then also on there, if you look in 2020, we had a principal bond payment for 2012 and 2015. So in 2012, we bought our fire ladder, which was $625,000. And in the same year, we bought a new garbage truck for $250,000. And at the time, we had some bonds going on. So we actually just did it at the same time. And then what we did was we pay out of this fund to pay for the principal itself and the bond and the interest. And the money came in from those departments. And you'll see the same thing happen in 2021. We actually bought a snow blower. We have the payments. If you notice, there was a payment for the fire truck from Reinhardt Township, so we actually billed them for that. That came in there. And then we have those bond payments again. 2022, we just had repayments coming in, and we had the bond payments going out. 2023, we bought a Zamboni, and we have the payments again. And that was actually the last year of our bond for the garbage. Oh, there we go. So 2024, which was this past year, we bought a garbage truck and we bought a motor grader. And then we had our payments going back. So in 2025, our plan is to buy a payloader And those are the repayments that we've estimated that will pay it back from the general fund. And then there's also some payments from interfund. So that interfund would be stormwater, we still have a slope mower that we're paying off, and the garbage truck. 2026, the plan is for a trackless MT7. I know Jeremy has presented on that. It's got some really funky wings to mow and stuff. And then we still have the turf we keep pushing back. And we kind of pushed it back till we figured out what we were doing with our arena projects. And then we have a fuel pump and island that we know eventually will have to be replaced. We've been lucky to be able to fix it and keep being able to push it back. So 2027, this is where we're talking about the fire truck, which is what brought us here tonight. And the fire truck that Jeff Boushee will present you, the total cost is approximately $750,000. And he's going to talk about the agreement possibly with the townships and paying part of it. So I highlighted that because if we get payments from the township, this is where it will go. We'll purchase the equipment out of this fund and don't know how we would get payments back from them, if it'd be yearly or once, but this is where it would go. And then just kind of show you where we are through 2029. Okay, so this is our Planet software. It's for a capital improvement plan, so I just
Karla?
have on there.
Carla, if I may,
Yes.
how do you determine on the payback? Is it a percentage that you do each year, or how do you?
Yeah, so what we do is we charge 3%
Okay.
for an amortization schedule. And I
Okay,
have the
that's what
schedule
that-
attached, so you'll be able to see it.
Okay,
It's on the
that's what that
last
was.
page
Yeah.
of your stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is actually our capital improvement plan software. So what I did was I just printed the CIP financing fund to show you what is in there, which matches what we just did in that little spreadsheet. So we have the fire engine that we're looking to do with rural for $750 in 2027. And we put it in 2027 because we know that when you order these high dollar equipment, you have to put something down. We don't know how much, but we're planning on putting it there just as a placeholder. We have the turf in there for Park and Recs. Public Works, we have the fuel pump in 2026 and the payloader in 2025, and that trackless MT7 in 2026. Oh, now let's see here. Oh, that was way too small. We go one way or the other here. Let me see. Oh, and it skipped a page. Backspace. Okay. Something that didn't want to work. Okay, so this is off our budget document. And I highlighted the line that we budget for the central equipment fund rental. That's what it's on the system. And that goes to our 703 fund. So the fund equipment, like I said, most of the equipment's over 9 years. And so there's more than one payment in that. So we have some equipment we got in 2020, some in 2021, and you'll see that on our next slide. But so what we have budgeted for 2025 is $39,728. So this is, that was fire. This is our public works. And you can see there is larger dollar amounts, but they have larger equipment. We also have more equipment. They're actually probably the biggest user of this fund between motor graders, payloaders. Yeah, you know, Jason just gets all the money, but yeah.
Karla, if you could go back one slide, just a question to make sure I understand how this all works. Like that $177,670 that's in the 2025 budget, is that in the public works budget now, and then it's going to go from there over to this capital improvement to fund their future equipment needs?
Correct. Correct.
So every department kind of has a tax that goes into this fund, and then this fund is used for capital improvements as kind of like a balancing fund?
Yeah, we're actually very lucky to have it because, you know, you'll have people coming in and they want, you know, we have some really good finance for you when you buy your equipment, and we already have our own fund.
Sure, at
And
3%.
people are really amazed. So it was very, you know, smart thinking on our forefathers to do that.
I think if I could just jump in to clarify, you said for future equipment needs, this is more of a payment obligation for previous equipment purchases.
Understood, okay.
So
Yeah.
when we purchase, when we propose purchasing the fire engine, we know the upfront cost of the engine, we'd use the essential equipment fund to fund that, and then we'd pay ourselves through the general fund into the equipment fund over a 9-year period.
Okay.
To pay back, instead of financing outside our own, with a different financial institution, we're basically financing ourselves.
Okay.
And at one time, we actually was at 5%, and when the interest rates dipped down, we actually are only paying ourselves 3%. So this is the spreadsheet of all of the different equipment we've used. And if you look, there's 20, 25, 26, 27. If you add those up, so the public works, all those add up to that 177, 678 that we had on the other page. Okay? And then it actually goes farther, but I just printed this out. So, and you can see, I just left the ones on that we'd done before, just so you could see how much we have used this for lots of different equipment. So you can see in fire and rescue, we've done it for a rescue truck, a pumper truck, and then we have on there that fire engine. And I only put the city for 60% because that's what we're talking about. So that would be 450. And then we have in there the radios. Okay, so what I did was if you look here, we put in for 2027 to start paying it back. Just to get a head start on it and just kind of keep our budgeting process a little even, so we're not, going to save all this money one year and then all of a sudden we got to find more money. So just to kind of keep it even, Reid and I decided that would be our best bet. And then we have Park and Rec, and these are all the things that it's been used for. Right now, we're paying back on that payloader, the loader plow for Greenway, older Zamboni, which is almost done in a few years, and then a new Zamboni we got. And actually, what we've been doing with the Zambonis is that we buy a new one, put it at the Civic Center, the old one goes to the VFW. So we actually been doing that, and then we actually budget the older one out of the VFW and the newer one at the Civic Center. So it follows where they're at. And then there's just one more page on this, and this is for our interfund. So this is for stormwater and refuse. So stormwater, we used it to fund another mower, and right now we have just 25 and 26 to pay off for that other mower. I know Jason has talked about buying another mower. It's on our budget for this year. But there's like $1.9 million in the stormwater fund. So instead of you taking out of this fund and maybe not being able to buy other equipment, it'll be bought out of the stormwater fund.
And that comes from a charge on all of our water and light bills that
Yes.
funds the stormwater fund?
Yes.
Same as the trash?
Yes. And then we have our new garbage truck we bought this year, and we'll be paying that over 7 years instead of 10 because the garbage truck has more wear and tear on it. So if the other thing I was going to call attention to is that we've done radios. The radios, depending on what kind of radios or what kind of equipment, sometimes we'll do a 5-year because we know that they just, technology gets outdated quicker. But, you look at a payloader, they're on the schedule for a 10-year schedule for depreciation.
That'd be 21.
The pay it on call is what POC stands for. And so we have that as a placeholder, just so we know it's coming in. Questions, comments?
Thank you very much for putting this together.
Yeah.
This is very helpful to kind of walk through how this fund is, how money comes in and how money comes out, kind of leads us into the next item. So I really appreciate you putting it together on short notice, Karla.
You're
Thank
welcome. Yeah.
The Civic Center turf.
You want to answer that, Reid? Thank you.
The idea for turf, it's indoor turf to put on the arena floor in the time when there's ice not in the building. It dates back to, the idea for it dates back to when we signed the agreement with Ultru the partnership agreement with Altru in 2016. And in that contract with Altru, it calls for turf to be placed inside the Civic Center. As we started to learn more about the water issues we have in the Civic Center and the risk for flooding inside the building on heavy rain events, we opted not to buy the turf at that time. And as this sales tax project with the recreation facilities has evolved, we've continued to sort of just slide the turf another year back in our purchasing plan to see where it all fits best in our facility as we move forward. So it says Civic Center turf there. It doesn't necessarily mean that's our end plan, is that it would end up in the Civic Center, but the ideal outcome would be Altru, as part of their partnership they signed in 2016, some of the money was committed to putting indoor turf in a facility. Once we feel like we have a good answer on where the best place to put turf is, then we would be bringing forward a request to buy the turf. So Karla has that listed as an item through this fund, but it would be financed or paid for through dollars received through the Altru partnership.
Could you explain to me what purpose that turf is going to be? What's the reasoning for it that they wanted that?
Yeah, generally, I think going back to the time that it came up, is there was a high need and demand in the greater Grand Forks community for an indoor turf facility, something where you could get inside and play soccer, flag football, run rec activities when it's inclement weather in the spring, fall, when it's raining, when it's cold, to be able to have youth sports, be able to play and practice in there.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Karla. Let's move into item number 2 then. Request to consider joint fire engine purchase proposal. Mr. Boushee.
Thank you, Council President, Mayor, Council. Thanks, Karla, for laying that out too. Appreciate it. So tonight I want to bring forward a proposal we received from our 7 townships that we serve, and this is regarding jointly purchasing future fire engines. But before I get into their proposal, I'd like to just give you a briefing on our situation, our existing plan and ownership. And I'll be referring to the RCA that I put out on this. So right now our fire department operates with 3 fire engines. Each fire engine is a 30-year replacement plan. And right now I'll refer to the engines here as numbers. Engine 409 is a 2000 fire engine. It's owned 100% by the townships. That one's due for replacement in 2030. That's what prompted this whole thing. The second engine we run is a 2008. That's 408. That's owned 100% by the city. That one's due for replacement in 2038. And the third one is engine 407. That's a 2018. That engine is owned 60% by city, 40% by township, and that one's due for replacement in 2048. That was the first time we did a joint purchase on a fire engine, and it's been working out very well since then. Any questions on where we're sitting right now?
When's the last one due to be replaced again?
2048.
48?
Yep.
What's the ownership on the second one? Is it 60/40?
The
second one?
The city-owned one, 408?
So the city owns 408, the
Yes.
townships own 409,
Correct.
and then we jointly own 407.
Correct.
Okay. Where are they all kept?
Well, we use both Station 1 and 2.
Okay, they're kept in town here.
In town,
That's my question.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, in town.
Okay, got it, thank you.
So getting to the proposal we received, so at our January annual meeting with the townships, part of that meeting was to discuss the replacement of 409. It's coming up due in 2030. We found out from manufacturers that they're 3 years out, so that kind of made us talk about this with being a little more aggressive on pre-planning. And out of that meeting, they asked me to present this to our city and see if you would consider a joint purchase on fire engines from here on out. So I'll go through their proposal. They're looking at replacing engine 409 in 2030, and they would propose that the city would buy into that engine at 60%, they would do 40%. Again, they're planning on placing that order regardless in 2027, so they have that replacement here in 3 years, by 2030. And then they would like to buy in on the city-owned engine when we replace 408 at 40%. So again, another 60-40 split in 2040. They just asked if we'd make those numbers even so it's easier to keep track of, and that's okay. We can do that. And then 407, again, they would like to redo that one again when we replace that in 2050 at 40-60. Yes.
What, if any, issues are we having with 409 right now?
409 is, our city mechanics do a really good job of maintaining things. The issue with it is, it's at the 30-year mark, we always look at parts availability, safety features, efficiency of the truck. And the township is ready to let that one go. We'll probably get a decent price for it right now, but they understand the reasoning behind the 30-year replacement.
Thank you.
You had a question? Yeah.
Right now, we own 100% of one truck and 60% of another truck.
Correct.
Which ends up being us owning 53% of the entire fleet of the trucks.
Okay.
Now, if we switch to this model, we will then own 60% of the trucks. Grand Forks.
It is. We would own 1.8, but before this purchase, before we did the joint one, we were at 2. We owned 2 trucks.
Right.
We need to keep our fleet at 3. I did the math. If we get into this joint purchasing, when you figure in 7% inflation rate, when it comes time to replace the one that we own, we would save $110,000. If we buy in 60% now and 60% later, we are saving $110,000 because of inflation.
Who pays for the maintenance on the trucks?
That we pay, that was an arrangement they did out of the first joint. We pay the first $50 for parts, or $500 for parts. After that, it's split. We do all the labor unless it goes out to a technician. Yeah. Any other questions on that?
Kind of a tough math equation.
Yeah.
One
To
small
ingest.
question. The usage, is it 60%?
No. We're probably using it 10% out in the rural, out in the townships. That's where they came up with the 40%. They were willing to realize that and make it more appealing to the city and go with the 40% when them vehicles are used 10% of the time out in the rural. And I would say that's even a high number.
In the long run, partnering up with them on these things could save the city a little bit of money too by repairs and stuff, right? I mean,
Yes. Yep.
So have them help pay for some of that stuff rather than us doing all of it.
Right.
So it could be
Parts.
It's kind
When
of
we're talking
yeah,
parts,
right.
yeah.
It's kind of a win-win deal, I think.
And the other thing on the parts that they help pay for too is the pump certification. Every year we have to do a certification on our fire pumps, and that's getting more expensive every year. So they pay for part of that as well.
I just want to mention that they are considered our assets, and we do pay insurance on them. Just so you're aware of that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So we just look at it basically donated. They're donated the 40%, so we own the asset.
And that's the other thing about that ownership is we have them assets on our books.
So when are you looking to order a new one? Are you thinking?
Regardless of the outcome of this request, The townships would be looking at placing an order in 2027.
By 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on their proposal? Budgetary impact, the next fire truck, we've got estimates between 700,000 and 1 million. What we've done in the past is we've paid in full because, as Ms. Anderson said, that we're fortunate we have that money there, we can pay it in full. The last fire engine we bought saved us 3% upfront, which amounted to like $12,000. So if we do that, and she already laid this out for us anyway, but we'd be on the hook for $450,000 approximately in 2027. That was a placeholder in 2030. I asked if we could move it up to 2027, anticipating, hopeful. When it comes to a recommendation, I truly believe this is a good plan. It brings structure, continuity, and affordability to both entities, and it's worked well. My recommendation is that you approve this proposal and authorize staff to develop an MOU with the townships.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Boushee? If not, next week we'll be voting on the proposed cost share and replacement plan, and then Reid, you'll work on an MOU with the respective counties. Could you remind us which counties in particular we're partnering with?
Yeah.
Townships, I'm sorry. not-
Townships, yeah.
Counties makes it, yeah. Way different deal there.
I hope I get this right.
Yeah.
So Bigland, Grand Forks County, Sullivan, Keystone, Nesbit, Reinhardt. Oh, who am I missing? Bigland. Huntsville.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we cover 188 square miles. So we got a pretty big territory.
Sure do. Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 3. Consider accepting donation of batting cages from the Home Run Club. Mr. King.
Thank you, Council President, City Council, and Mayor. With me tonight, I have Mike Peterson and Dean Steiner from the Home Run Club. They are requesting to put up a new batting cage at Stouse Park. I'll just give you a quick history of kind of how we got to be to this point, and then I'll open it up for questions. Last fall, the East Grand Forks Home Run Club started a discussion with the Parks and Rec Department about adding a new batting cage at Stouse Park. The current batting cage is a single batting cage that's in tough shape and needs repairs. The Home Run Club seeks permission to install a new double batting cage at Stouse between the driveway and the Babe Ruth Field fence. The Home Run Club would fully fund the project, including the two 70-foot by 14-foot cages, the curb, the concrete slabs, the turf, at an estimated cost of about $60,000. Once the project is complete, the current batting cage would be dismantled. Additionally, the only really request that the Home Run Club has from the city is the use of the space, possibility of some man hours to help install the cage if necessary. And then once the project is complete, to take it on donation and add it to our inventory.
That's great. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. King or our guests?
Sounds like a good deal for us. Thanks to the Home Run Club for taking care of that.
Yep, I would echo that. Thank you very much for your support of our youth programs. This is an exciting project. I'll volunteer Mr. King for help putting up the when the time comes. He's pretty handy. So, no, in all seriousness, thank you very much. And thanks for coming tonight, guys.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4. Consider approving VFW Memorial Arena rentals. Mr. King.
Thank you again, Council President and City Council and Mayor. I have the two, I would almost call them standard at this point, spring ice rental agreements, one from the Blue Line Club and one from the Northern Lights Figure Skating Club. These agreements typically start towards the end of March when we're getting to, towards the middle of March when we're getting ready to take ice off, and then goes through about mid-April. One thing that's a little bit different this year is we've had an influx of inquiries into the office for additional ice rentals, not necessarily from these two clubs, but from other parties around the area. So I would request that we would consider keeping the ice on from the end of these contracts. The Blue Line Club typically does a summer rental starting at the beginning of June. We take the ice out, takes about roughly 4 days for two men to take the ice out, and we leave it sit for those 4 to 5 weeks, and then we take another week to put the ice in. The request would be to leave the ice in that whole time. Operating costs with utilities and maintenance and part-time staff hours are probably estimated at about $16,000. We have, I would say, commitments from two parties that were willing to take up about half of that cost. We would be able to bring in easily $8,000 worth of revenue to cover that $16,000. That still leaves Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and most weekends available for ice to be rented. So to make up the other half of that, we only need to rent out about another 54 hours of ice. I feel very confident that we'd be able to do that just with the amount of phone calls we've received at the office. So my request would be after the camps are concluded, that you allow us to keep the ice on until the end of June when the Blue Line camp is finished. One thing that it would be helpful for our staff hours when we take the ice out in the spring, it's usually not too tough because we're kind of in that transitional period between seasons, but sending two workers in to put the ice back on at the end of May to get it ready for that June camp really puts a strain on our department, especially when we're trying to get the pool ready to go for the season. Those are the same two workers that do a lot of work for us at the pool. So that would be my request, would be to approve the two contracts and then keep the ice on. And then ultimately, once the arena projects are finished and we have a new dehumidification system and the new ice plant at the VFW, I would like to have that as our, just basically our ice season for that building would be putting the ice on in September and then taking the ice out at the end of June, leaving it out for July and August.
Okay, thank you. Mayor?
So that 16,000, is that in consideration that you're not taking it out and putting it back in?
That is not, no, that is just, it would be, yeah, if we included the man hours, two workers, roughly 160 hours total, we're probably saving an additional 5,000. It's even higher than that.
Would you be saving, because you won't be doing those man hours?
Right.
You'd be leaving it in. So actually 16,000 might be only 9,000.
Right. And the other thing I should touch on too is when we have issues really with the compressor system over there, it seems like it's when we're in transition to shutting it down and starting it up again. So it'd actually be easier on the equipment, the existing equipment that's over there right now, just to continue to let it run all the way through.
Mr. Helms?
So, Mr. King, are you talking about keeping ice on all three?
Nope, just at the VFW
Just
arena.
at the VFW?
Yep. The Civic Center and the Blue Line Club will come out at their normal
At the
gate.
normal times?
Yep,
Okay, so just the VF?
just the VF.
Is it, you mentioned it, we have about $8,000 in commitments.
Mhm.
Is it 8 or is it like 14? Because I see here that the Blue Line Club is 13,125.
So those would be separate. So those contracts, when they sign those contracts, they'll pretty much have the ice for that whole month. And then after that would start that $16,000 worth of utility and maintenance cost, and we have $8,000 committed on the opposite side of that.
Okay, so the 13,125, when we're keeping the ice on, like we're gonna do it, but what does it cost to keep it running for from the 17th through the 10th?
It's right around that same cost. It's right around that same 16,000. One week less, so it's probably closer to, I'd say, probably 13.5, 14, something like that.
I agree, though, that it's probably better for the equipment and, $16,000 to keep it running. But as the mayor mentioned, the labor to take it out and then put it back in, there's a savings there as well. So.
And I do feel confident that we'll be able to make that up in revenue.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? All right. Moving on then. Item number 5, request to hire recreation coordinator and advertise for park and recreation specialist.
Thank you again. The Civil Service and Park Recreation Department has completed the interview process for the rec coordinator position. Mr. John Witchick has been offered and verbally accepted the position upon council approval. And excuse my typo there, I put Wednesday, February 5th, but it's actually the March 5th when you would all approve that. With John being the internal candidate promoted from within the department, we are seeking approval to advertise and replace the Parks and Rec specialist. The specialist plays a vital role in the department's ongoing success, providing essential administrative support. The position is responsible for a variety of tasks: customer service, marketing, programming, planning events, distributing information for our Parks and Rec, keeping the website up to date, and on top of those regular duties, we could see some additional duties coming for that position with the anticipated workload as the facility improvements project progress. And then once we are completed with all these projects, and hopefully we have a new turf baseball field, which would be an added baseball field within the community, we could see some additional programming needs and opportunity to generate more revenue. So I could see this position actually growing in the future as we finish up a lot of these projects. The specialist position is listed at a grade 10, step 1 on the city's full-time pay scale. A starting wage for that is $22.12. Both the positions are in the 2025 budget for the Parks and Rec Department. Recommendation would be to promote Mr. Witchick to the coordinator and allow us to advertise for the specialist position.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. King? Mr. Hill?
I have another one. Was that coordinator, was that advertised the second time around? Or
It was advertised twice.
It was? Mm-hmm. And how many did you get on the second go-around?
We had 9 applicants on the second round.
Was there some of the ones were they some from the first round? Or?
Most were from the first round again.
Any other questions? All right, well, a lot of opportunities for internal growth here working for the city of East Grand Forks, so it's great to see. Okay, thank you. And Jeremy, looks like we have you again here. Item number 6.
Yeah, they all piled up at once.
Yeah, they sure did. Request to purchase 160 niche Columbarium for Resurrection Cemetery.
And thank you again. The cemetery budget includes $80,000 this year for a purchase of a new 160 niche columbarium. The last columbarium was purchased in 2022 and it's reaching capacity. This proposed columbarium will closely resemble the 2021. The current columbarium that's out there, there's actually 3 out there, but the most recent purchased one has singles on one side and companion niches on the other side. This would be an all-companion niche. It would model the same style of the existing one. We're currently down to only 11 companion niches left, and we still have 27 single niches left. Over the past 2 years, a sales ratio of about 4-to-1 on singles versus companions. So we decided with this one it would be a good idea to go all companion. We have $80,000 budgeted. The cost for the columbarium is $70,906. That includes the cost of the foundation and the crane to set the columbarium. The lead time is 32 to 34 weeks out, placing it all the way back to November. If there are delays or some reason, well, we can't get it this year, we'll put 3% down on it, and we'll be able to be the first, or one of the first ones in 2026 in the spring. Recommendation would be to approve the purchase of the Columbarium from Cold Spring Granite, and then use the remaining funds out of that $80,000 to do some concrete work and landscaping around the Columbarium.
Thank you, Mr. President. What's the cost to purchase a niche?
So on the ones we have existing, for the companion style, it's tiered. So if you go, the higher you go, the more expensive it is. So on the top tier, it's $2,600, and on the bottom tier, it's $2,000 for the companions. And I'm guessing I haven't just penciled out the numbers as I was looking at it. I'm guessing this one will probably be, for the higher, will be up around that $3,600. That also includes the plaque and the opening. And once we have all that stuff, we'll go through that at the cemetery commission. Then we'll bring that forward for approval on the amounts once we have that completed.
Looking at me? Yeah, I have another question.
Mr. Helms.
Just for reference, the one that's there now, that you just, the last one you put up, was how many spots were in that one?
That was 120.
That was 120.
Yep.
I was just trying to get an idea how much bigger this one would be compared to
So
that
the
one.
only,
It's not really that much.
Yep, it'll be the same height. It'll just be a little bit wider because the one that's out there, it flip-flops on the sides. So you got companions on this side and companions on this side, and then when you go to the other side, then you got singles and singles. And so the only difference between a single and a companion is the depth. And so this one will actually, this will be, I think it's 18 inches wider total.
Not that much
No.
bigger. That's what I was curious.
Same height, same color,
Yep.
everything else will be, and then the same style plaque will be ordered for those as well.
And it'll match, Jeremy. It'll be like a consistent design out there.
Yep.
Great. Sidewalks to everything.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Mr. King, you're dismissed.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 7, consider proposed Xcel Energy franchise fee renewal. Mr. Huttunen.
All right, thanks, Council President and council members. The franchise renewal with Xcel Energy, Northern States Power Company, is up for renewal this year. The current ordinance is set to expire in mid-November. So we are looking at and working with Xcel Energy on the renewal for that. There is an ordinance. This is an ordinance form. We have a draft of an ordinance that City Attorney Gallstead and I have been going through, and we have near completed, ready to send back to Xcel for their council to review and provide comment back to us. But as part of that, that includes the rates that I wanted to bring forward for discussion tonight. The current agreement, it's set on a % of the gross earnings of the company, and that percentage is at 3%. I would like to note that in the ordinance that we have in place right now, it did state that at the end of 2015, that ordinance could be increased to 4% by action of the council, and then following the proper notification of the Public Utilities Commission and Xcel notifying its customers. We did not ever exercise that action to increase the rate to 4%. So now we're at the end of the 20 years, and the fee has been 3% through the entirety of the fee. I say that just because I think it gives some sound reasoning to why we would consider the fees that I've put in front of you now. A little bit of a catch-up maybe, so to speak. The fee structure within the state of Minnesota for franchise fees with natural gas, they're now recommending, the state is now recommending that rather being on a percentage of gross earnings basis, that we use a percentage calculator to punch out a flat fee monthly equivalent. So right now in your bill, when you pay your gas bill, you see a city fee, 3% of whatever the total of the bill, the natural gas usage was. going to this new model, it would be more like the service fees that we have on our utility billing as a city for your refuse or your greenway maintenance or your rescue unit fee. It'd be an established flat fee on a dollar amount basis spread to each customer each month. And I've been working with Xcel Energy to come up with a couple of scenarios using a flat fee and keeping it underneath the statutory limit that the franchise fee cannot exceed 5% of the company's gross earnings. There's a little bit of a math scenario we have to do there to come up with that. But in the council agenda information, I've shared a couple of proposed fee structures looking at a 4.5% equivalent or as an alternative, a 5% equivalent. And those fee structures would look like for the 4 customer classes we currently have. I'll talk about the 5%. The residential class, the monthly flat fee would be $2.75 per month. A commercial firm non-demand would be $13. The commercial firm demand would be $200. And the small interruptible class would be $75. Those dollar amounts are all provided to us by Xcel Energy, looking at the amount of gas use within each of those customer classes based on the 5% of gross earnings that they would see, kind of using our 2024 gas usage to run a scenario on what the outcomes would be. So that puts it as close to possible to 5% as we could if we ran that scenario. And then the other price scenario I included was if we ran it at a 4.5% of gross earnings scenario. The thing I would mention to it is looking for feedback on either of those fee structures. There are additional customer classes within Xcel Energy's business model that we will need to list in the ordinance and establish a fee for. But there are no current customers within those classes. The 4 customer classes that are active right now are the 4 listed. And Xcel, just today, we were having this discussion that they had neglected to provide us the other customer classes. And we'll want to preemptively do that so that if there is growth or new customers that come online that fit in a different class, that the fee is already established for those. So I will have some work to do with Xcel to come up with what those proposed rates would be. And when we get the ordinance back from Xcel in a redlined version and bring that forward to the council, there will be a few additional customer classes added to it. I think the last thing I would just call attention to is I did include the summary of what the annual franchise fee revenue has been in the last 20 years. And you can see that number has really fluctuated up and down based on natural gas usage and based on climate and winter climate, right? And so we've seen it as high as $180,000 in a year, and we've seen it as low as $68,000 in a year. And that would be one of the positives of switching to this flat monthly fee is there's a more consistent projectable revenue for us on an annual basis. So I think that's a positive. I mean, the only other real foundational change to the ordinance itself is currently Xcel pays this to us on an annual basis. And under the new ordinance, they've agreed that they would pay us on a quarterly basis. So we'd see some cash from them a little more frequently. I'd be open to any questions or direction on either of the 2 rates. If I was going to offer a recommendation myself, I would offer the 5% or as close to 5 as possible. Understanding the updated agreement will again be a 20-year agreement. We can update this fee structure within those 20 years by council action of renewing or updating the ordinance. But I think it'd be in our best interest to set that as close to that as we're comfortable, just to eliminate the need to be able, if we don't want to go back 3 years from now and try to hit it again.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. President. Reid, I got a couple questions here. First of all, what fund do these franchise fees go into?
This is a general fund revenue.
Okay.
Yep.
And the franchise fee isn't Xcel paying us a percentage of what the customers have paid them. It is us adding an additional fee onto the resident's bill. So this doesn't hurt Xcel any. It just hurts our residents.
Yeah, Xcel is the collector of this fee on our behalf. Yeah, okay. It doesn't eat into their earnings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the benefit of charging this fee? How much does it help the city?
My initial feeling, the benefit to it is that it is, it helps to increase the revenue to the general fund, which in turn is a reduction to the potential tax capacity we would need to tax.
I struggle with raising rates on utilities on our residents. It's my only feedback. So I also, a percentage is a bit more, I mean, there's probably some cost savings, but it's not as consistent, because if the utility rates go up, right, then if we look at it from the other aspect of like, let's just collect the fee, if it's a percentage, then we're getting a higher dollar amount in proportion to what the bill is versus the flat fee. And is the flat fee a requirement, or is it just a recommendation?
It's been directed to me that Xcel in the state of Minnesota, Xcel is requiring it. That hasn't had legal counsel on our end really dive into that if it's a requirement, but that's been the way it's been directed to me. Yeah. When you look at the rate book that Xcel has in place, it looks like everyone over the last, I would say, is for sure back to 2021, any renewed ordinances are on a flat fee structure versus a percentage structure.
Excuse me, on a budgeting basis, this is actually easier for us if we know what the percentage is, and then whether it doesn't have any factor. So if you look, 1 year, it's very hard to budget. 1 year we got 180, the next year, the other year we got 68. So it's actually a really good tool for us in budgeting.
Okay, Mr. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reid, could we go back to that, the commercial rates there again? You said they were going to be, what, $200?
Yeah, the ones that I summarized, and I would not be the best person to define what company or business falls into which business class. That's a question, if we desire a strong answer to, I'd need to follow up with Xcel Energy. But the customer classes that we currently have are commercial firm non-demand. That rate would be $13 on a month. Commercial firm demand would be $200, and then small interruptible would be $75. And the way it's been described to me, the commercial firm demand and the small interruptible there's less than 15 customers within our community in each of those classes, and those are the highest using natural gas users of all the customers that they have. So the fee that was proposed is proportionate to about the dollar amount that they're paying on the current 3% gross earning structure, meaning they're using that much natural gas that their 3% dollar amount is much higher than a residential user would be.
So what was that fee? What is it right now?
Right now, it's 3% of the total natural gas they use.
But the $200 fee for commercial, is that something new then? That wasn't there before?
It's structured differently. It's currently structured that they pay a 3% fee of the total natural gas that customer uses. Yeah. So like I went to my bill to look at it to try to understand how that works. In the summer months when I'm not using any natural gas at all, the 3% city fee is 3% of my total natural gas bill, which in the month of July was 33 cents. In the winter months, when I have a $185 natural gas bill, then I'm paying 3% of that $185 bill. So it's a higher fee in the winter months. This structure would basically balance that over the entire year instead of having the fluctuation with the use of natural gas.
I'm just thinking that $200 a month fee to any commercial business, I don't care who it is, would have to pay that. That's a pretty hard hit.
Yeah.
In this day and age.
Right. And that's what's being described to me.
I would argue against that. So the $200 fee is a set fee, right? And is that actually equivalent to 5% of the highest user?
It's equivalent to 5% of that user group as a whole. So they wouldn't, when I say they, Xcel Energy.
From, if I'm looking at the 5% one, we've got commercial firm demand. What you're telling me is there's 15 businesses that pay, that will pay $2,400 a year in the franchise fee.
Correct.
And if it was 5%, they would pay $2,400 based on their usage.
Correct.
Okay. So possible that there's one user in there that uses so much natural gas that their fee would actually be $500 a month, and then that they're actually getting a savings from that?
I think that that's a fair question, and we don't have the information to know that answer. Okay. And Xcel Energy will not share that with us. Those small groups that are less than 15 users, when on that chart you're looking at, the dollar amounts are zero. They are considering that information confidential and proprietary because there's such a small class that they don't want to disclose the specific businesses that could be a part of that group.
They may give you the information without disclosing the individual business. Answering your question.
They've said they won't because it's small enough that we, looking at it, could figure out who the customers are.
Figure out who that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my concern would be that if they pay this fee, this is a franchise fee they're paying, but if Xcel decided they were going to raise the rate, that franchise fee is going to go up then, right?
Under this model, this franchise fee will stay as is unless our council directs it to be increased or
It'll
decreased.
stay, okay.
Under the previous model, where it's a percentage of the gross earnings of the company, that would ride, and that does. That's why you see the great fluctuation on an annual basis, is that percentage rises and lowers based on the price of natural gas and the use of it.
Okay.
What happens if we don't sign an agreement?
Would have to consult our attorney on that.
Does the current agreement just ride?
I'm sure that there's language in the ordinance to that effect. I would need to read it to know. Yeah.
I would vote no on this, as it is. That's just my opinion.
Mayor Olsted?
So if you're looking at the revenue that we got in 2024, it's roughly not 2% of the levy, it's a little bit less than that. Correct? If I'm looking at it correct there.
Yeah.
So 23 would be pretty much 2% tax levy. 2022 would. So if we went to the flat fee, where do you think we're going to land then for revenue per year? Since we won't have the fluctuations, and we'll have to factor it in into the budget then too.
Well, and it's a fair question. It's a little difficult to get to the exact number of that because we don't have the information of those two customer classes. The small interruptible and the commercial demand, they just tell us there's less than 15. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 12. We don't know that. But that's the forecast. Using the two customer classes we do have the information on, at a 4.5%, the annual revenue would be forecast at $128,742. And at the second proposal that nears 5%, it'd be $143,047.
And I see that, and I was just kind of wondering on the demand stuff. If we can't know it, it's going to have to go with it. I mean, because they won't provide it. So really, as years go on, of course, the levy percentage changes for the dollar amount. So, I mean, even with the 5%, equivalent, I mean, you're probably, as time goes on, we're going to be this 2% right now. as years go on over that, it'll continue to go down. If we're going to set something and we can't tie future councils to anything, I mean, would have the option to go back and change it. If you had the flat fee of $200, then you're not worried about the percentages. You're not worried about so. I would lean toward the 5% myself. That way you can budget, keep budgeting, and if down the road we need to change it, you can change it.
Mr. Riepel?
You're talking 5% flat.
Yeah, the equivalent to 5%.
Yeah, 4.83.
Yep. Okay. Any further comments or discussion on that item? All right, thank you. Let's continue to move on. Item number 8. Are we going to pull item number 8, Reid, or did you want to brief the council?
If I could just brief quickly on it, yeah. And then maybe just to summarize the close of the last agenda item, the next step will be that we'll get all of our red line comments to Xcel for their review. So there won't be something coming to council next week on those rates. It'll be later on, probably May, June timeframe by the time we get comments back from Xcel. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So this item on West Central Regional Water, I really intend it, for the sake of the discussion today, to be informational as best as possible. I will preface it and start that I am not the most technical or best person to answer the questions that you might have on this. Keith Mickleseth would be our best, and he is in DC this week. He does plan to be back on Friday of this week and should be around next to be able to answer any more technical questions that there may be. He's been much more connected with it. But the proposal is really coming through Polk County, and this formed group that is investigating and pursuing a regional water district to serve the counties of Polk, Norman, and Clay. And I should say parts of Polk, Norman, and Clay. They had representatives join us in town at our water treatment plant a month and a half ago or so, under the request that if they get court approval and have an engineering study done to study the potential of a water district of this nature and of this size, if East Grand Forks would be willing to participate in the exploratory study or engineering study for the potential that we would supply water or sell water to the district. The water treatment plant operators were in attendance at the meeting. Keith was in attendance at the meeting. There's no official request of how much water they would desire to buy, if any at all. They're researching and studying all of the potential water sources that could serve the district, but they've asked if East Grand Forks could be one of those that participates as a potential provider. So it is largely, again, I'll reiterate, it's largely being run through the counties right now. They've had meetings set up with a number of the utility service providers that have larger water treatment operations, namely East Grand Forks, Moorhead, Crookston, those types of communities within the district. There's no commitment to any of it at this point, just a request that we would submit a letter of support. If we submitted a letter of support, they would ask that it go to two places. One, at the federal level, there's a letter included in the packet that would speak to supporting a larger water infrastructure bill and a potential appropriation of funding at a federal level. And then two, a letter of support to the water district itself that if they get the necessary approvals to conduct the study, that we would be willing to participate in that study. That's to the extent I know today, about as much as I know of it. I will say, and I do know that there's, of course, a Marshall Polk Water District as well that touches boundaries of East Grand Forks. And I know that there is certainly a lot of discussion going on at that water board and how that relates to this West Central District and how the two will overlap or work together, and where the territory maps align. So I don't have any real recommendation or direction at this point. Just wanted to provide the information, and hopefully it can spur questions that we can get Keith or others that are more technical than I am to be able to provide answers back to.
Okay. Any questions for Reid? Mr. Riopel?
To add to that, it was a real preliminary talk is what they're looking for ideas. You got the Red Lake Watershed District up there that has their own. And what happened is you're looking at Boston, that area. They're having some issues getting water. Crookston's got an aquifer that they draw out of. And there's talk of coming from North Dakota even yet through from that direction. Like I said, it's all speculation at this point, so I'm sure there'll be more to come. And again, Keith has got his attention on it.
Thank you. Speaking for myself, I think it'll be interesting to learn more. I'd be very cautious about creating water issues for future councils. So it'll be interesting to see an analysis and learn a bit more about this project while looking out for ourselves and possibly helping our neighbors, I guess. So, okay, thank you for that update, Reid. We'll look forward to future conversations there. Item number 9, discussion on potential leaf collection. Mr. Stordahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. So there's been a few council members as well as residents that have asked if the city would consider a leaf collection program similar to what the city of Grand Forks does. We've taken a look at what it would entail to do this. I have no doubt that we could start a program like this, but in doing so, we'd probably have to have either a leaf collection or a fall cleanup day, one or the other, not both. A lot has to do with staffing. So we took a look at what the annual fall cleanup costs us approximately, and it's around $40,000 a year. Obviously, each year goes up a little bit. Those costs include landfill costs, countrywide sanitation, poles on the containers. There was no way to really track what, the amount of fuel we use. We don't keep track of that, and all the machinery. Typically, it's about a 2-week period for fall cleanup. We have our first week, which is the scheduled cleanup, and then we have our second week, which is brush cleanup and also some of the stuff that people forgot to put out type of deal. Along with that also is hazardous waste drop-off and electronic drop-off costs. By starting a leaf collection program, we initially would have to purchase some equipment. I have in the RCA about $95,000 to $110,000. We've gotten those prices more narrowed down. It would probably be closer to the 95, maybe 97,000 to purchase the equipment. We'd have about the same amount in advertising that we do in fall cleanup. So after the initial purchase, it would be a pretty good cost savings per year compared to the fall cleanup. Staffing wise, it would work out pretty well for us as well, because with leaf collection, we'd be using 2 to 3 staff, depending on which roads we're on. If there are more highly traveled roads, we'd have to have probably 3 staff with somebody behind in a safety type vehicle. The one issue here is if we wanted to get started right away, I'm sure we could do it by trying to find a used piece of equipment as far as the leaf vac goes. But if we were going to buy new, which that's where we got the $97,000 off the state contract page, we'd be looking at, like a lot of other equipment, probably 12 to 18 months to, after we order it to get it delivered. So the benefits of switching, I guess, are less manpower. We'd have more freedom to do other things like mowing and a lot of the maintenance on our levee, especially in dry years and along outfalls, because our full-time staff ends up getting tied up in a lot of the mowing activities once the seasonals are done for the year. And again, depending on the fall, how cold or warm it is, rainfall, such. There'd be a cost savings per year, and then it would be a good service to the residents that seem to be wanting it. So just brought it today for everyone here to consider. We haven't really discussed it too much. Reid and I haven't discussed it much as far as how to pay for the additional equipment, but one thought that Erica and I were tossing around is that, some of our equipment is paid through our stormwater enterprise fund. And one of the things we do for our stormwater program is leaf collection. So we could possibly pay for it out of that, or at least partially pay for the equipment out of that fund. So today, I guess we just wanted to throw it out there, see what council members' opinions are on it, if that's a route that we would like to proceed with or not. It kind of is relative to the next item with green site improvements on what we decide to do. If we do the leaf collection program, I'll get into it when we get to the next item, but I would choose a different option. I guess there's 3 options for the green site improvements. Versus if we didn't do the leaf collection, it would be a different one. So,
Okay.
Any
thank
questions?
You, Mr. Stordahl. Ms. Schumacher.
So if we didn't do a fall cleanup, we'd do one in the spring?
We'd still do our
Don't take it
spring
away,
cleanup.
okay, don't. We need it. Okay, and then that, like how Grand Forks does it, it goes to the berm, right? And then, it's like a big vacuum cleaner that comes and,
Yes, correct.
okay.
Yep.
That would be awesome. And then we wouldn't have to put it in the back of the truck and bring it to the green site and,
Right.
gotcha.
And there'd be some savings there too, because
Right,
we
right.
would be disposing of it
Gotcha.
rather than a lot of it. Half maybe goes to us and maybe half to the landfill.
Okay,
So-
okay, cool, thank you.
What's the cost on a used unit?
We haven't been able to find one right now, but we
Got them, they want them, huh?
yeah.
Mayor Olsted.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've talked to Jason on this numerous times over the years of doing this. I've had residents reach out to me and want this service. I think it's a great service that we can provide to them, especially if we keep looking out at the many years of doing the fall cleanup, what it's going to cost us, the cost savings that we're going to have, especially, and being able to have our staff be able to take care of other stuff in the city during that time, and it's beneficial to us. So I know that where I live, it's going to be a great thing because we have trees everywhere. So, I think everybody and the citizens, have reached out. I would ask that if you're for it, please reach out to your council members and staff even to let them know, because it's something that is it's a service, but that goes a long way with a lot of people.
Thank you. Mr. Markovinsky.
Would we only do one pass?
We're thinking about doing maybe 2 passes. That's what Grand Forks does. But then if there gets to be inclement weather or whatever, we would have to adapt that to,
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Thanks.
I would agree. I think this sounds great. A good trade-off with the fall cleanup and with the labor savings. The equipment appears to pay for itself fairly shortly.
Yes.
Great.
Very good.
All right, thank you all. Let's move on to item number 10 then, discussion of green site improvements.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we brought this forward a little bit last fall. I guess we discussed some possible improvements to the green site. There's a few different issues going on with our current setup. One is residents trying to get in and out of the green site. And with people dumping just kind of randomly wherever they are in the back there, sometimes it ends up getting filled up, not really filled up, but filled out so quickly We had a lot of moisture, a lot of rain last year, so the area got really rutted and dug up. The drainage is pretty poor in that area. We actually added quite a bit of fill in there. One of the other things is that when we haul in our leaves and branches, a lot of that stuff we can just haul to our own area and it costs us nothing. But when residents put branches and leaves in the grass bins, that may be charged at an inert cost, which most of it's been, and that ends up costing the city quite a substantial amount of money. So there's 3 different options there before you. The first option is to basically expand the back area some and then add in a concrete service in a storm sewer collection area so we could get some of that water out of there as well. And with that option, there'd be Jersey barriers that were on the outside, so we'd have something to push against as well. The current facility just has a fence for 2/3 of it or more. And there's no area to really push against, I guess, the loaders. Versus option 2 and 3 are both options that if we went with a leaf collection for fall cleanup, I would recommend option 2. They're similar. Number 3 has a little less concrete in there. Number 2, we would haul out everything in roll-off containers on both of these options. But number 2 just gives us a little bit more space to back in and out of there. We would fix the problem of people entering and exiting in the same area. There'd be an entrance and an exit in that case, in both of those cases. The city would haul all of the leaves and branches from the back area to our site and hopefully haul the grass to the landfill. We're talking with the city of Grand Forks right now on what the rates might be for us if we did that. We have to bring forward rate discussion on all of refuse, not just the green site, but commercial garbage. We're going to have a 4% increase this July per our contract with Countrywide, and then each year after. We have our commercial rates where we haul the dumpsters. They're going to have to be updated as well. So we plan on bringing that to a future meeting to see just how we might pay for, and if the council chooses to go with any of the options, how we might pay for that in the future. Again, this was just kind of for council to take a look at and think about the different options if we move forward. Again, if we went with the leaf collection, I would recommend option number 2. And the savings just by us pulling the containers ourselves is very substantial. Did we figure like 40,000 right off the bat if we start doing that ourselves? And again, it's hard to know how much fuel we're going to use, stuff like that, and we'd have the manpower there anyway. It wouldn't take a lot for us to haul those out. So I don't know if I missed anything, but anybody have any questions or opinions?
Go ahead, Ben.
What about the gate?
We would not, in our thought process, we would not use the gate. We would open it up to everybody in the city. Right now, we're losing every month. The city is losing quite a significant amount of money if you just talk about the $2 that's put towards that facility. If we were to charge all accounts in the city, it would significantly raise that amount so where we could break even and then actually move up. For us right now to break even, we pay the residents that utilize it right now, they pay $2 a month. We would have to have them pay $4 a month just to break even with our current situation right now. But if we went ahead and had all residents pay, eliminated the gate, it looks like we could get by with substantially less. We ran a whole bunch of figures here in the last few days, but depending on what we do, I guess it's, the numbers change a lot. So the short story is that to break even right now, we'd have to charge all residents $4. If we charge, the current card holders, $4. If we stayed at, or if we charged everyone the $2 right now, we would actually be $23,000, almost $24,000 a month to the good. So it's a big difference. Right now, we just have nothing but problems with our gate. The way that other communities do it, they don't charge at $2 and have a card. There might be a fee figured out in the budgeting, but it's all just incorporated into the one refuse fee. The gate has nothing but problems all year round. Winter it's snow, summer it's heat. Fall we can't use it because it just heats up so much going back and forth. And it's just a maintenance nightmare. And it doesn't matter what we put in there, how much money it seems like we throw at it. It's just always a problem. We don't have a lot of illegal dumping right now. We have some issues with the commercial folks once in a while. Our cameras are active in there. And we have had violators in there that the police department has contacted, fined in some cases. So I think we've eliminated quite a bit of that, but that's all I got.
Any further questions for Mr. Stordahl? Mayor Olsted.
I don't know if it's a question, but I know I talked to Jason on this, and if we're going to do leaf pickup, I would agree that number 2 would be the best one, especially when you're going in and out of there, especially with trucks. I think the third option would be limit the ability to do that. And I think that looking at eliminating the gate and looking at proposed across the board is probably the best way to go, because it's open anyway. So they go in. Doesn't matter, they don't have to have a card because it's open, because it doesn't work. So,
And if we do the leaf collection, that'll, eliminate some of the congestion going on there. So that'll help as well.
but you're still going to offer you can bring leaves if you want.
Yeah.
And recycle.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I think option 2 kind of makes the most sense from a use perspective. I see why we have to have a storm sewer inlet or a intake there in that pavement, but I think it'll be a challenge to keep it from getting plugged up. Just something that we really have to watch. And then thinking outside the box, kind of a challenge for Jason and Maggie here is we're collecting a significant amount of biomass, of potential compostable materials. Is there a commodity there? Is there a potential commercial use of this material that we're paying to get rid of now? Just thinking outside the box. I don't know what that would be, but let's put our heads together and find a way to use this product rather than just paying it to go to landfill.
We have actually looked into that. And if you have enough staffing and time, you can do things. But it's very intensive. They do some of it in Grand Forks, the city of Grand Forks. But they also have full-time staff that are dedicated just to it, because you have to roll it when it heats up, the compost, you have to mix it. It's like it's a full-time position at least to do that.
And that's not what I'm alluding to. Is there somebody that wants this stuff as it is? Wouldn't that be great?
Sure, yeah.
Just think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Not something that we have to accomplish with this agenda item, but something to talk about.
Yeah.
Great.
And then I'm not trying to cut you off there,
Sure.
but I will be coming back, Eric and I will be coming back with some rates and rate structures and ideas on how we might be able to pay for this as we move forward. So that'll be in a future work session.
Great. Mr. Helms, you have a question?
Yes, thanks. we still pay Countrywide for those roll-offs, right, for the
Yes.
leaf and grass collection and stuff there that they use?
Currently, we do.
Yeah, have you got enough roll-offs to do that yourself yet, or, and would that be quite a savings to us if we went that way?
Yes, it would be a huge savings. Just one pull, not counting whatever's in that to be disposed of, is over $180 just for one pull. So it would be a very significant savings.
So when is that contract up with them, with Countrywide?
2028, I believe, but we have talked with Countrywide and we can take over that service at any time we want. Yeah. It's written right in the contract because
Okay,
we anticipated possibly doing this.
Okay, good.
Any other questions on that item? All right, I see none. That brings us to the end of our agenda here. We'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Helms. Is there a second? Second by Pukshavinsky. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Meeting is closed. Thank you all.
Wow, that was a long meeting.
Yeah, you got some making up to do.
First time we had a meeting that long in a long time.
Yeah, been a while, yeah, pretty light for a while.
Either here or up there, either way, don't matter.